The idea was really born for the Swiss Pavilion when Rem Koolhaas announced the theme, and I was invited to curate the Swiss Pavilion. And Rem actually said that it would be for fundamental architecture, but also he encouraged the pavilions to revisit moments of modernity in the 20th century, and he somehow triggered in me this idea to basically combine here Cedric Price and Lucius Burckhardt. I've worked with both Price and Burckhardt in the 90s when I was at the Musée d'Art Moderne de la Ville de Paris and did solo shows with them. And one of the things which was very astonishing was the incredible similarity there often is in their drawing. And it's very, very wonderful that Eleanor Bron is here with us. She will at 11:10 do her reading and was actually very involved at the time when we did this Paris show of Cedric. It was an exhibition of drawings, and it also had to do with Venice. Just from the very outset, we would like to say that Cedric always called Venice Venic, so drop the E in all communications or whatever. Whenever you mention Venice, Cedric wants us to call it Venic. We also have a sticker in the program book for this new word. It was very important for Cedric that we drop the E. So if you can all join that and drop the E of Venice from now on, it would make Cedric very happy. Now, the idea was to combine Cedric and Lucius and actually show the archive mostly of drawings that led to many collaborations. We're going to discuss that over the next couple of days, of course, with the CCA in Canada, with Mirko Zardini, and above all also with Herzog de Meuron, the architects whose teacher was Lucius Burckhardt. And that's maybe an interesting aspect to mention that Cedric Price was the teacher of Rem Koolhaas and Lucius Burckhardt, the teacher of Herzog de Meuron. So we invited Herzog de Meuron to develop this exhibition with us and to co-curate also the Lucius Burckhardt part. From the very beginning, it was important to me to involve artists and to actually make this exhibition not into an archive which would be static, because that's something both Cedric and Lucius would have hated, but to make it into an archive on the move, into a dynamic archive, or could maybe also call it a living archive. I then rang Tino and Asad, also Liam Gillig, Dominique Gonzalez-Förster, Dorothea von Hantelmann, Philippe Barreno, and Atelier Bow Wow, and that became the core group who started to develop this exhibition and started to develop a choreography. And Asad and Tino are going to tell us more this morning about this idea of a living archive, how to bring this archive alive, and how to make it into choreography. It's also important to say that the archive is in the central room here, and that then we have two, wide spaces on the right and on the left, where this choreography, permanently unfolds in different ways. And then we have here, in the courtyard, the discursive program, the marathon today and tomorrow, but also it's going to continue throughout the Biennale. And I have to mention here very especially Lorenza Baroncelli, who is with us, and Lorenza is the scientific director of the Swiss Pavilion and has been deeply involved in all aspects of these projects. And one of the things which is important to say is that there will be the summer school, so throughout the summer, the marathon is only the beginning, these days, today and tomorrow, but it will be active for the next 6 months. Of course, the collaboration with the ETH and with many other faculties. We have ETH students, young architects and artists here at all times, around 10 participants who actually will in conversations show you the archive. So that's a very important part of the collaboration. Then we have the roof with Atelier Bow Wow. You're all invited to climb the roof and have another view on the Giardini, an homage to the aviary of Cedric Price by the Japanese architects. The idea was also to invite, and I'd like to thank you also very much, our commissioners, Marianne Bürki and of course also Sandy Paucic, with whom we developed this whole project. And Lorenza and I felt it's very important to actually have the Summer Academy with the president Stefano Bueri, but then also have, of course, advisors and artists involved who engage with the structure. So Eleanor, Samantha Hardingham as well have been very involved for the Cedric Price part. Elizabeth Dillon, Olafur Eliasson, Dan Graham, Carsten Höller, and Kushong Ah, and also Rike Tiravanisha made art projects which are, as well as all the other things, on wheels, so everything moves. We have here the tree of Carsten Höller, and all the other aspects. We have the singing tree of Courchonga, and you will discover little by little all these different projects. And then, of course, with Mirko Zardini and the CCA, the whole collaboration on the archive of Cedric. That's just to outline somehow the structure of this year's Swiss Pavilion, the structure of a stroll through a fun palace. The title comes, of course, from these two inventions. We have the fun palace of Cedric, his unrealized project. This is also for us a sketch of how we imagine a 21st century institution. So in this sense, it's an homage to Cedric's unrealized fun palace, but it's also an homage to the stroll and Lucius Burckhardt's invention of a science of going on a walk, a science he called strollology. And the amazing thing is actually that he managed to make this into an academic discipline in the University of Kassel. So you're all invited, after and in between the marathon to your own stroll through a fun palace. And please give a very warm welcome to Tino Sehgal and Asad Raza. And I thought maybe, Tino, you could start by telling us a little bit about the fun palace, the choreography, and everything.
I'm very happy to be here. I was happy when you rang me, so thank you for bringing us here to kind of help you stage this living archive, as you call it. I'm too much of an artist to kind of speak too much when the thing is going on. No, I always believe in this kind of liberal thing that what you were also telling me the other day, that you make your own version of it. I guess one thing which was very important to me to say one thing is this idea of an addressal, no? That like in art exhibitions, and I think Dorothea will speak a lot about this, Dorothea von Hantelmann, throughout the day, but like in art exhibitions, it's very nice that you're kind of free to roam around. I think that Cedric Price also picked up on that and spoke about that. And something I also feel strongly as a kind of very individualized person, but on the other hand, it can also sometimes be a little bit weak and kind of incomprehensible and kind of very little communication between these objects and a human being. And I felt that was even more the case with architectural plans. So when you asked me, I felt like, okay, there's these architectural plans, these architectural drawings, how can we actually communicate them to the people? So I think that was the core idea, to say, okay, we have this archive, but we're going to have architects from Venice and also young architects from Switzerland kind of showing this material, introducing this material, and not just this bland standing in front of them. I think that was the core, core idea somehow for your project here.
And maybe one thing which would be interesting, Tino, would be to tell us a little bit more also about the collaboration with Philippe Pareno, because it's a dialogue between you and Philippe and Asad, which has now been going on for some time. You were part of Philippe's exhibition at the Palais de Tokyo. We then developed an exhibition in Arles, which is still on, which you can see at the Luma Foundation. And the project here in Venice is also a collaboration with the Pro Helvetia and the Luma Foundation, and also the Steo Foundation in Zurich. And this project of the Luma Foundation in Arles is, in a similar way, showing architecture differently. It's a collaboration also with Liam Gillick, and there is a sun, there is projection on models, similarly to here. The Frank Gehry models are on the move. So I was wondering maybe if you can tell us a little bit more about this dialogue with Philippe, because both Philippe and you are working on this idea of sort of dramaturgy and choreographies of exhibition, and when it comes together, it produces something truly, truly new.
Yeah, I think that what we're interested in, what we're all interested in, what you're interested in, what Dorothea will speak about, I think it's a group of people who's interested in a kind of new format, let's say. We feel that the exhibition is a little bit too static, it has too little addressal, it doesn't develop in time, and I think that Philippe and me, we meet in this, and that's, I think, why also why I think for you and me it was also important to give this stage, which I hope you will then also appreciate throughout the day, to Dorothea, to give a longer kind of historical overview of what is this ritual, why do we gather here. One of my favorite sentences is from James Coleman, with a piece that I never saw. His piece he showed, what is it called? The one with the actor Harvey Keitel, but apparently I haven't seen it. But at the beginning of the, but James told me about it, and Dorothea told me about it. And at the beginning of the thing, it says, what is the meaning of this gathering, you know? And in a way, I think that's, I think the question that Philippe and I are obsessed with is like, why do we gather in this way? Why are we all here kind of together and at the same time individualized? What does this mean? Why are we not like dancing in a circle, you know, half naked? Why are we critically looking at these things? And I think that's why this is the question of like a new ritual. Like you say, we're interested in kind of maybe thinking about what a new kind of institution could look like, and that's very much Riprese's initiative. The Fun Palace was not just an architecture, as I understand the Fun Palace was a whole institution, came from a theater person, Joan Littlewood. And so, and obviously it's somehow sad that it wasn't built because one couldn't see all of its mistakes, no? Because I'm sure there would have been probably a lot of mistakes, sorry about that. There are a lot of good things in it, but like we couldn't learn from the mistakes of that institution because it was never built. And nobody else, Centre Pompidou, was then a complete kind of vulgarization of that, you know, and just a conservative kind of thing in the end, you know, when they also rebuilt the Centre Pompidou, they built in walls in the 80s. Anyway, so I think this question of a new ritual, I think that's the, like what could it be a new format, what could be a new ritual, which seems more kind of in line with our times. That's the question, huh?
And can you maybe tell us a few more things about the ritual, how it actually unfolds in the space? Because obviously there are lots of different moments how this archive is made active, it's made a living archive. We have this wonderful idea with the chairs you developed, where basically we have the panels of Herzog de Meuron and of the CCA, the Cedric Price and Lucius Borka panels, and they're basically unfolded on these chairs. And then at the same time we have the choreography in the main space where we have the model of the Fun Palace, and then little by little, in the morning it's completely empty. I was actually also thinking it's almost like a combination of Yves Klein's idea of Le Vide and Armand's plan, this whole dialectic in a very full and a very empty exhibition. On the one hand, the main space in the middle is very full with thousands. I mean, we've got enough material here for the next 6 months so that every day you can discover something else. Yet at the same time, when you arrive in the morning at 10 a.m. and you're the first visitor, the space is completely empty, and then a trolley suddenly shoots out. So maybe before we...
You said it all.
But it would be great that you describe to us a little bit how this choreography came about, and or should Asad do that?
I don't know, but you've already said it, basically. We wanted to take 10 minutes, Hans-Ulrich.
Good, so then let's move on to Asad. Asad, I wanted to ask you then to tell us about the choreography, because it was an interesting genesis in some kind of way, and we all had our moments of input. You know, there was the day with Dorothea, there was the day I was here non-stop, and you somehow, little by little, evolved this choreography with Tino, and I think it would be great that you tell us how it sort of came about.
Yeah, I think one thing that was fun about it was that, you know, like, we're trying to create something that moves, that's in motion. It's an exhibition, but it's also constantly moving, and not just the people who walk through it are moving, and they're moving through a static display of inert things, but they're moving, and then the other things are also moving, so that creates this kind of very dynamic situation. But not only that, the other things are not all created by one person, like one choreographer, although it's all part of one dramaturgy that maybe Tino and I tried to develop. The truth is the other elements are also in motion, for instance, like Philippe's blinds. And so for me, what's very interesting about that is if you compare that to, say, like cinema, or something that's a more classically kind of modernist art form, 20th century art form, like in cinema, like the famous example would be Hitchcock, who said, you know, once I've done the storyboard and drawn out the storyboard of every camera move and every shot, it's basically done. And then after that, I just do this kind of drudgery of hiring actors and shooting the scenes and all this stuff. And I always thought that was a bit depressing of a way to look at the fun part, which is the living situation with all the other people. And he really wanted to just be alone drawing a storyboard and then let, you know, this other part, which I consider to be the more interesting, fun part, go. But here, you know, it's like Philippe came for 2 days and we worked on the blinds to create this kind of dance with the blinds. And then long before that, Ku had come and worked on her idea for the tree. And then little by little, we tried to fit these things into one machine and somehow. I think that's also what's quite interesting about this. Not only is it a moving exhibition, but it's a group exhibition intended to put these other two figures on display through these interventions by a number of people. And so the question of like the authorship somehow is interestingly confused to me on that level, despite the fact that I think Tino we somehow all listen to Tino when it comes to somehow the final moment. Like, is this better? Is that better? It's like, at least I do. But still, all the elements were composed, like for instance, that, by many different people in many different moments.
And that's actually interesting, Asad, because it's sort of whole idea of it being not only a web of contributors, but it's obviously a very polyphonic homage to Cedric and Lucius, with a very unusual kind of collaborative situation involving artists, involving architects, involving designers, involving art historians, scholars. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because you, as a producer, are a great expert of this web of relationship and this kind of web of collaborations. It would be great to hear a little bit more, because it is clearly, I mean, if one looks at the credits, it's more like a film than an exhibition. It's very complex.
Yeah, but I think also that's, not only is that something that we're all three of us here sympathetic to philosophically, I think that's something that both Cedric Price and Lucius Burckhardt were sympathetic to philosophically. The idea that it's not about like kind of putting putting your own individual signature in giant letters into the world and freezing it there so that others will always get to see that, which is like, that's the more classic idea that comes out of architecture. It's like about this flourish of a genius frozen in time. And I think Burckhardt's idea of like minimal intervention and Price's ideas about buildings having a lifespan, those are both recognitions that like actually all of these human actions that we take are not for all time, but are there for like a particular network of actors, and you can maybe make a small incursion into that. I think that's a more humble way to think about making stuff. But also that just means that like all of these things come out of a more network theory understanding of agency than they do of this like Hitchcockian, not to beat up on Hitchcock, 'cause I like him, this Hitchcockian understanding of like there's this single force.
Wonderful. Tino and Asad, thank you so very, very much. Thanks a lot. And this is only the beginning, and as you know, most urgent and important things are